Fantastic Four: First Steps is an action sci-fi superhero movie directed by Matt Shakman. It stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and Ralph Ineson. Against the vibrant backdrop of a 1960s inspired retro-futuristic world, Marvel's first family is forced to balance their roles as heroes with the strength of their family bond while defending Earth from a ravenous space god called Galactus and his enigmatic herald Silver Surfer. Of all the superhero movies that have been coming out, maybe next to Superman, this is a film I've definitely been more skeptical about than anything. For a quick rundown in terms of their place in pop culture, the Fantastic Four hasn't exactly gotten the best treatment, which is crazy as it should be an easy enough concept to adapt. For my money, the only time Fantastic Four has been adapted perfectly isn't even an actual Fantastic Four movie. That would be Brad Bird's The Incredibles. I don't need to reiterate this to you, as we know the 2005 movie has always gotten mixed reception since it came out, and the 2015 movie is infamous for being quite possibly one of the worst superhero movies to ever grace the silver screen. Now, here we are again, another 5 years later exactly, which I find interesting how every Fantastic Four movie seems to come out in the year ending with 5, including this year with this latest movie. The director, Matt Shakman, who I mainly know for directing a slew of episodes for the TV show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, certainly an odd choice for a movie like this, but the episodes under his direction were usually some of the great ones. So, what is this version of the Fantastic Four like, and how does it compare to the ever-degrading nature of the MCU? Well, let's find out. I'll start with the performances, firstly talking about Pedro Pascal in his role of Reed Richards. Pascal is of course known for roles in many movies in the last couple of years, including Kingsman, The Golden Circle, and The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I thought Pascal did a good job in the role. He easily slipped into the role of Reed Richards, and I think they couldn't have picked a better actor for this version of the character. A little bit before the movie came out, it was reported that he said initially he would have given Reed a transatlantic accent, which, if you don't know, is basically the accent you'll hear whenever you would watch a 50s or even 40s movie from Hollywood. It's basically how just a lot of people talked in those movies and basically real life as well. But the producers pushed Pascal to use his regular voice, which is a sad loss, as I think the accent would have really suited the character and environment for this movie more. Whenever he speaks about the really complex science things, he conveys as if he knows all this information to a believable degree. He has a lot to balance with while being a hero. He is constantly considering every little variable that goes into being one, and there's times where you see this weight he has to deal with fall on him. Vanessa Kirby plays Sue Storm, or the Invisible Woman, if you want to call her by her superhero alias. She's known for having roles in movies like Mission Impossible Fallout and Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw. For me, out of the four in the team, I think she carried this movie with her performance. She gets a lot of the emotional moments in the film and plays them to a really great degree, as she has to balance being a hero while also being a new mother, which does a great job at giving the impression that she would do anything for her child, no matter what those means may be. On another side of things, chemistry between her and Pedro Pascal is really entertaining to see, as it's written extremely realistically for one, and two, the two actors really seem into each other. It's one of the most believable romances I've probably ever seen in at least an MCU movie for sure. Ebon Moss-Bachrach plays Ben Grimm / The Thing. Other roles from Bachrach come mainly from being in the TV show The Bear. For me, seeing him in this role is such inspired casting, honestly. He does a great job at embodying the spirit of this character, while also portraying him in a way that I feel like it hasn't been seen before, in films at least, because we get some quick but good moments of him being a hero. We get brief moments of Ben grappling with the identity he has, but for the most part, Bachrach portrays him in a fun way. He's one of the more comedic roles here and does get a couple of good moments and line deliveries that actually got a laugh out of me. Joseph Quinn plays Johnny Storm / the Human Torch. Quinn is known mainly, of course, for having a role in the TV series Stranger Things, and having roles in movies like A Quiet Place Day 1 and Gladiator 2. Of all the four, he probably has the most comedic moments of the bunch, which he actually pulls off well with his comedic timing. For the the character he has to portray, there's usually a level of cockiness to him, which we do in fact see here, and he does a good job at doing that too. He has a good dynamic with the rest of the four. When he bounces off of Bachrach's character, the two share some good banter together. When he bounces off of Kirby's character, there's this level of compassion the two share for each other, the way siblings would realistically. And when it comes to the dynamic of Quinn and Pascal's character, it was interesting to see them sometimes clashing with their ideals from time to time. Julia Garner plays the Silver Surfer in this movie. She's known for having roles in movies like most recently Wolfman and The Royal Hotel. In this movie, she is very stoic, but at the same time kinda wooden, but I will give her some credit. For a role like this, she does, in fairness, have to give off this impression, as this is usually how the character is. She isn't given that much to do in this movie. She's treated more of a henchman to Galactus than anything. I feel like more of her character maybe was meant to be seen, but wasn't given the opportunity. Ralph Ineson plays Galactus in this, and I thought he did a pretty good job here. He is very threatening when he wants to be, especially just from how he speaks. Usually he has a very distinctive voice regardless, but they give the guy some vocal effects which help make him even more menacing on top of this. He has such a commanding presence whenever he's on screen, and I think he's a good example of one of the better Marvel villains we've seen in quite a while. Walter Hauser plays the Moleman in this movie, a character when I heard was going to be in this movie I genuinely thought was going to be some throwaway character, but he was in it more than I expected him to be. He's mainly just here for comedic relief, but the comedic moments he does have are good when they're present and don't overstay their welcome. They're incorporated pretty well whenever he's on screen. I'll give the movie this much credit. It's certainly one of the more interesting stories to come out of whatever phase of Marvel we've landed into at this point in time, for how they treat these characters. Time and time again, Marvel proves that whenever they plot something in its seemingly own world, it usually works out a whole lot better. The story being told is never stopped in favor of setting up 5 other movies or callbacks constantly to 10 other movies that have come out before, which makes it, for me, more engaging in this self-contained world. But also disappoints me knowing that we won't be able to stay in this world for very long, as it's certainly the most interesting conceptually and visually since probably the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, if I'm being honest. The first 40 minutes is probably the most entertaining the MCU has been since Endgame, genuinely. It shows our heroes already established, which I mean, thank God. I maintain Fantastic Four is another example of superheroes where a lot of people know their origins probably due to the original 2005 movie. We do get a kind of quick summary of their origins, which I felt was done in a tasteful way. We see the four being loved by the general public as they're basically treated like celebrities, even to a degree like this universe's equivalent to the Beatles, which I thought was a nice touch with what they were going for in this movie. Throughout the runtime, we see the four go through their lives balancing hero life and their regular lives, which made for an engaging watch, especially when some of these choices lead to the public becoming more untrustworthy of the group for reasons I won't get into, but it caused some good conflict here. With all that being said though, I think the final act really lets this thing down for a few aspects, not just from the story angle, but we're still talking about the plot right now. So an aspect I didn't enjoy was this movie really had to do the trope of having a fake out death from a major character. I won't say which character it is, and it goes on for far too long when everybody in my audience knew for a second that this character was just going to be alive by the end of it, especially when Marvel had already announced that these characters would be showing up in their next movie anyways. The cinematography on this movie was done by Jess Hall, who did cinematography for Edgar Wright's movie Hot Fuzz, a movie I've talked extensively on the channel in the past before in this video. This is definitely one of the better looking MCU movies, which isn't really due to anything exceptional going on in the cinematography aspect. It's more down to other things, but at least it was somewhat visually appealing. The nighttime scenes actually look good, featuring well-lit streets and a nice color scheme spread over the night sky. The space scenes were also shot well and had a nice contrast of color with its lighting on top of it. A big part of this movie that really struck out to me was the set design. Since this is set in a pseudo 60s inspired retro-futuristic world, this really shows through the set design, as there's lots of attention to detail to make this world feel very lived in. From the cars to the clothing of all the civilians to the different pieces of furniture in the Fantastic Four's home, there is so much going on here that really makes the setting work so well. There's another aspect of this movie that was really enjoyable. It really made for a great treat on the eyes whenever I was able to scan the scenery to see how they they could make it feel more like it was in the setting that it was in. Costumes themselves in this movie are very vibrant and colorful, which is great that superhero movies seem to be doing more and more of nowadays, which is always great to see. The suits for the Fantastic Four are the best they've been on screen for sure. For the first half of this movie, it was nice to see that there was heavy use of practical effects from the set design being actual sets the actors were on. A lot of other aspects like the little robot the Fantastic Four have, which is a real practical thing. Like, that's great to see. There's a heavy usage of this particular thing for some fleeting moments in the final act, which even features Galactus stomping around this miniature New York. Unfortunately though, in the third act of this movie, there's an over reliance of green screen that frankly just feels like there was less effort put in. Sometimes it gives off the impression that these effects were even rushed in order to make the movie come out in time. It just wasn't nice to look at to me, which is a shame because most of the movie was really great looking. It's annoying to see the MCU just cheap out like this. One major piece of CGI also that was really distracting and borderline plain bad was this horrific looking CGI baby. It's so bad that it's actually on the level of that CGI baby that's in Twilight. It's that horrendous to look at. The music in this movie is composed by Michael Giacchino. He's known for composing music for films like The Batman and The Incredibles. The music here is actually pretty good. It's one of the more memorable scores I've heard in an MCU project in quite a while, even giving the Fantastic Four their own theme, which is really cool to listen to, the scenes that are in them. Every now and then there are some tracks that evoke the feeling of 60s type music, and I thought it was a nice touch to include this as it made the setting feel more lived in. Overall, this movie is pretty much just about fine. It has some of the highest highlights that we've seen from this franchise in a while. But here's the thing, it's not as fantastic as a lot of people will make it out to be. So just be prepared for that in the online spaces. It's funny though how I noticed more and more that online reactions are kind of fucking meaningless. Hey, including my review, am I right? Since when I got out of the cinema, I overheard other people saying how the movie was just okay as well. This movie starts off so strong, but it plays it so incredibly safe at the same time, which is the exact same as every other MCU movie. They always play it safe, which is why I have a bit more respect for the new DCU which is being made, as they're planning to have a mix of different genres with even probably different age ratings, which the MCU, I'm sorry, can probably never pull off by the looks of things. Not in a good sense anyway. I'm giving Fantastic Four First Steps 3 stars. The movie features some pretty good acting from its main four. They all work well off each other, having such great palpable chemistry as well. The first two acts present some of the best looking visuals the MCU has ever pulled off in such a long time. It was honestly impressive to see these characters interact with actual environments, and seeing all the vibrant colors was a nice touch too. There are times where it feels like a lot of the movie was cut down, which in this case was 20 minutes. 20 minutes was cut out of the final product, by the way, so I do wonder what was missing from this thing. Thankfully though, with this aspect, the movie doesn't feel bloated, so it never feels like it overstays its welcome. It falls into the usual MCU traps of having poor CGI and some tropey plot points, but it is thankfully another step in the right direction for these movies. I can't say I'm very excited for their next movie, which is Avengers Doomsday, but I'll certainly be interested to see all of these characters come back, as they were enjoyable to see on screen. If this review hasn't persuaded you the opposite way, the movie is still running in theaters, and I think despite its flaws, it probably should be watched on the big screen.